Today's training might be a little rough. You sure talk a lot.
What's up, guys, and welcome to What the Gaming.
What the?
Hey, what's up, everybody? On today's What the Gaming, I just wanted to talk about my thoughts on some things. This is not anything that really has to do with current events. It's just like how I see gaming, and as one of my favorite hobbies, I just want to go into how it's changed over the years. Somebody who's probably a little bit older than the normal demographic to what usually watches me. I am probably not as young as you think that I am, but from gaming, let's say in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s and now, there has been quite a shift towards certain things, and I just want to talk about that a little bit and my thoughts on that and see where we stand together, and then we can just have a conversation about it in the comment section down below, if that's okay with you guys. Anyway, thanks for watching, and let's just jump right into it. So as somebody who grew up in the 80s, gaming was just getting popular at that time, and I was super involved in the gaming sphere. My dad had like an Atari when I was growing up, so automatically as soon as I'm young, like we had gaming systems around the house and stuff like that. He fell out of it, I guess probably after having a bunch of kids, and we took up his hobbies. And among doing all my other stuff, like I just found gaming cathartic. Maybe it's because I have ADHD and like it's really hard to focus on things that I'm not really interested in, and my mind is going like 1,000 miles a minute at all times. Gaming kind of helps me to focus and get into a headspace where kind of like the voices go away, if that makes any sense. And it's just also something that like my friends also picked up, and you know, going over your friend's house and you're playing like Mortal Kombat or you're playing Nintendo or Mario or anything, it's just a very communal experience, and it brought us closer together as a group of friends. And that's always something that I enjoyed about it, the communal aspect. But something changed in like the early 2000s, and where that communal experience expanded with online. Obviously, online capabilities is not just online chat. So we have good and we have bad that came along with that. Now, I always go on record as to say my favorite era of gaming was the PS2, original Xbox, and GameCube era. I think that season of gaming in and of itself was probably the most expansive season of gaming that we've ever had. We had like literally something for anybody, whether you're playing board games on there or you want to play like even like something like Jeopardy or fighting games popping off. Like PS2 definitely at least had you covered in that aspect. Like they had everything. There was just like discovering new RPGs and you know, all that stuff is a really enticing thing to get you guys into gaming. And it wasn't super expensive yet. Games were pretty similar to what they are now. I'd say between like $50 and $60 brand new, but like controllers were a lot cheaper. The console itself was a lot cheaper, especially at the PS2. And you just had so much variety, and you're able to play with many different experiences that you would just in these three consoles that you had. And then of course we had the handhelds that came alongside of that, which is like I believe at the time it was the Game Boy Advance SP. I think it was the Game Boy Advance SP that was out during that time period. It was not the DS yet. But anyway, so if you're playing anything from Tekken to Pokemon to anything you want, like you're covered your bases. Now, when the PS3 era happened, we had already been introduced to online. So with PlayStation 2 actually had a network adapter for one of the Final Fantasy Online games, and with that came the ability to start playing online, and certain PS2 games allowed you to actually play online later on in its life cycle, such as Mortal Kombat Armageddon. I remember playing online and stuff like that. Not every game did it. It was towards the end of its life cycle, so it wasn't a vast number of games, but that's what got our foot in the door. There were no digital currencies yet. There were nothing of that sort. You still played your physical games, but now you can play them online. Now, I think it caught up to us with the PS3 and the Xbox 360. First of all, this is when we got our explosive price point, and I know a lot of people think that the PS3 era is their favorite, which is completely fine. I still think the PlayStation 3, the original model, the fat with the 4 USB ports and the backwards compatibility, is probably the best console that has ever come about, whether it's custom themes, the custom dashboard and XMB, whether it's actually able to burn CDs, any of that stuff. It was just a good time to be a gamer and a good time to be alive during that time period as well. But with this new online era and our HDMI HD, upgrading our new TVs, the thing that we got hit with the most was now we're starting these digital currencies. The digital currencies really slapped us with kind of like, hey, you don't have to go to the store. You can just buy your game right now and download it. And it was very small at first. It wasn't like a huge, expansive online thing like it is now, obviously, where you can have day and date. Every single game is like there, and they have like past titles and retro and all this stuff. It just wasn't the same. But also on that side, if you want to play online with your friends, like you had much more capabilities of doing so. Even if you lived states across, especially me and my friends at that time, you know, PlayStation 3 came out around like 2005, 2006. So like at that time period, unfortunately, I was already like a grown adult with like experience, like responsibilities that I had to take care of, and a lot of my friends ended up moving out of state. And we still wanted to keep in touch, so our way to keep in touch was that communal experience of playing games online. So I really didn't want to complain about anything that back then because we really had nothing to complain about. But when we're jumping ahead now to like the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 era, things really started taking off in a bad, negative direction. Especially when it comes to like things like microtransactions and stuff. Now again, there is positives and net benefits and negatives to this. For example, let's say, I always use this as an example, Tenkaichi 3 would probably never exist without, like, the way that gaming was done back then, with, like, games on a disc and, like, that's what you're fitting. Tenkaichi 2 was already, like, a really good game and had, like, a ton of characters. Tenkaichi 3 modified some things and they added a few characters, but if that came out today, that would have been, like, a season pass or a patch or something for Tenkaichi 2. It definitely wouldn't have constituted an entirely new game, because it wasn't an entirely new experience. But so when we're getting few and far between with that, like now we have like ballooning budgets that are popping off, and that's mainly due to like the capabilities of these consoles basically being PCs at this point, where your graphics are insane, you're getting good refresh rates and everything like that. So obviously like the ballooning budgets and the people working on the games is going to cost more, which in turn makes the game, if it's around a similar price, you got to make your money back, right? So especially when you're trying to satisfy and satiate investors and the publisher and all that stuff. So obviously it's a lot easier to like throw out microtransactions or throw out some kind of pass that's going to give you some kind of a steady monetary value, which is why we obviously moved into this like season system or like this always online system or whatever. But with that, we've gotten games that like require online or DRM, like digital check marking, to like make sure that like you're who you are and you have the proper license update for the game and all kinds of stuff. And you get situations where games will literally just stop working and won't be able to function at all if it has like a DRM check, and that game that you paid money for is gone. And this is when we really started getting worried about like game preservation and about being able to play games that you paid for in the past. And I know a lot of people like to move on to the next thing very quickly. That's generally how it goes. But a lot of people like to go back and relive some memories, or just like when their friends come over to like play something that held like nostalgia for them, or something that may not necessarily be like the most up-to-date thing. For me personally, I have a retro corner in my office where like anything that's like not HD, so like original Xbox and below, well, my Wii is in there too, because Wii isn't really an HD system, but all of those systems like Wii and below are plugged into, I have a big like 60-inch like projection Samsung TV, because the picture looks the best on there. I don't know if you try to play your PS2 with an HDMI adapter on like an LCD or an OLED, it looks like crap. Like it's really bad. So the preferable way to play those is like through emulation on like PCs, where you can adjust the settings. But if you're just trying to actually play the original way it's intended, I made a retro corner. And I find that I spend most of my time in the retro corner than I do out on my main setup with like my my 360, my PS5, my Switch, all that stuff. And I think it's just because like we're not only rehashing the same ideas over and over again, but we're losing all that individuality that games used to entail, that they used to embody, that they used to bring forth from us. There's not many new things that come out, and there's a lot of shovelware that gets lost on system spaces where you're trying to go into like the eShop or the PSN store, and you're just inundated with so much garbage, like these 99-cent games that are like AI generated, that I don't understand how they can get through the filtration system. I know it's probably to help indie developers put their games on the platform, but those rules are skirted when it comes to that kind of stuff. So we're getting into this territory now where it's harder to find like it's harder to find individualistic games, games that actually speak to you as a person and have like more variety between them. And we're still just getting sequels and everything, which is like what happens when the movie industry. This is the same thing that Matt Damon was talking about when he was saying that like what really hurt the movie industry was the fact that digital took away those physical sales of, you know, actual having Blu-rays or 4K restorations or like all these really cool like physical media that like people used to buy, and like movies would get a second wind. Movies that like now are cult classics would have failed without like the ability to watch them at home. So it's kind of similarly happening where the industry has to adapt as a whole. It's like evolve or die. With gaming, it's the same way. We see digital sales are up across the board, and I think a lot of that is cheating, but it's also the trend towards younger gamers are growing up in a day and age where like they're born with an iPad in their hands and like they're used to digital downloads, and this is like the way things are. That for those of us that like grew up in a different era, it kind of like feels like we're being left behind. And it is true, like it's no longer our world, it's their world, so we kind of have to adapt to their world and the way things are done. That's just how things work. But I can't help but feel like gaming has kind of lost itself along the way, and I just don't get as excited anymore for new stuff as I did back then, and I'm far more cynical than I ever once was. Like when we're talking about Soul Calibur, for example, like Soul Calibur 6 did so well, and everyone's expecting a Soul Calibur 7, and all of a sudden like Motohiro Okubo just up and goes to another company, and Harada's like, ask me in 10 years, and like it seems like just nobody cares and the focus isn't there, and then we get left behind even though the game did well and outsold what it was purported to have, its goal that it set for itself. So I try really hard to just like understand where gamers are coming from nowadays. And I understand that everybody plays games for different reasons and everybody has different experiences with games, and it's all of our medium. It's not just mine, it's not just my generation, it's not just for the young kids either. But the fact that we see success in these seasonal online only games such as like Fortnite and like stuff like that, as fun as those games are for a while, it kind of tends to push out all of the other things because the projections of the sales and the monetary incentives that are being made off of these projects don't let indies actually come up anymore. And then we have the exceptions that pull through. Like there was a couple this year that really blew up, and that's really thanks to like streamers promoting it and word of mouth and stuff like that. But it's just like scary to think about where things are going to go next. There's all this talk of like the next console is going to be digital only, or like even Xbox becoming like a third-party publisher and no longer even focusing on hardware and consoles and just putting Game Pass on everything and going the way that Sega did. The landscape is changing. It's just interesting to be here for it and to watch it happen. And I know a lot of people are upset about it, or like things aren't the way that they want them to be, and like I can completely empathize with that and understand that my era was the PS2, Xbox, GameCube era, and like now is just a different beast and a different monster, and you either have to learn how to enjoy it or just like don't do it anymore, I guess. Or you can be the change that happens within, but the chances of that actually happening are like very slim to none, because getting into the industry is insanely hard, and I know game developers, so it's like an insanely hard thing. You're constantly keeping up with new code at whatever. It's like it's hard. But as somebody who loves the industry and loves the median and loves what it does for people and the communal aspects, you kind of have to fight back in ways that like seem arbitrary. Like, of course, buying physical media, but also I boost the number of digital sales also because I game share with like my brother. So sometimes I will buy a game digitally and physically, so I'll have it physically for the collection, but I'll have it digitally so I can game share with him. And modern problems require modern solutions and all that. I just don't understand how we're going to get to a point where we're at a happy medium where it's not all digital, but it's not like, you know, us old heads yelling at the clouds constantly. But I don't know, do you guys think there is a solution to this, or is it just going to keep evolving even further to the point where like it's unrecognizable as a medium to us anymore and we're all just in VR? Like, I don't know. Any and all thoughts are always welcome in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching this ranty video. I just wanted to talk about gaming, what it means to me, where I see things going, and hopefully try to see what we can do together as a group using that social aspect of gaming to try to get back a little bit of the soul that I think gaming lost. But anyway, guys, that has been What the Gaming for this week, and I hope to see you guys on the next one. Peace.
Ivy Valentine subscribes to Mark Yoon. So should you. Enjoy your treat!
Sorry, but I gotta go.